Ladies, if you will, just tell me your name and what you teach.
My name is Patricia Brassel, and I teach music. I've been teaching for 37 years.
Pauline Ashton. I'm a paraprofessional and I've been here for 10 years.
Lisa Young, and I teach Discoveries, and I've been teaching for 9 years.
And I'm Sharon Pleasant Blackwell. I'm a fourth grade science and social studies teacher. I've been teaching for about 23 years.
Have you had more experiences with good instructional supervisors or bad instructional supervisors?
I've had more experiences with good instructional supervisors.
What makes a good instructional supervisor, in your opinion, then?
An instructional supervisor who's compassionate yet stern. A person who has, I guess, himself or herself experienced the classroom itself.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well, I've had a little bit of both.
Hmm.
And I guess it depends on the individual, him or herself, and how they, get along with an instructional supervisor. It depends on, like she said, the expertise, but how they bring it to the person that they're bringing it to. Sometimes it's all in the way they say it, what they're saying to the other person.
And I think so too. I've had a little bit of both, and I think it's in just being around, going around, being in the classroom, being involved in the children's life, although you're in a different position, still being involved in the school itself and still being involved in the children's and in what's going on in the classrooms, because most of them haven't been in the classroom or haven't been in a long time, and so they need to keep connected with that classroom.
With the classroom.
That's true.
I like being involved with the teacher and with each other as classmates.
And not
Learn
forgetting
to
that they were once a teacher.
Say that again.
And not forgetting that they were once a teacher.
Okay.
And from where they came, don't just, understand what's really going on in the classroom.
There are 3 prerequisites for instructional supervision. And if you think of it as a triangle, each one of these points is on the end of a triangle. One of them is a knowledge base in the teaching profession.
Right.
Another one is technical skills. The last and probably the most important, based on what you said, Ms. Pleasant, is interpersonal skills.
Right.
Okay. Would you all agree with that prerequisite to be an instructional?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Even though all supervisors are supposed to have those 3 prerequisites, some are, or if there is a continuum of instructional supervision, you have the more directive approach on this end and the more collaborative approach on this end. Just personally, which approach do you respond to better as a teacher?
I can respond to that,
Okay.
because I'm actually in a situation where I actually am at 2 schools. So I have the directive approach and I have the collaborative approach. And I definitely respond to the collaborative approach much better.
Much better.
Because you're working together, you know you're a team, you feel wanted, you feel appreciated, you feel a part of something, and it makes you and your excitement
Right.
go over into
Go
the
over,
other staff members, because you want to be there and you want to be a part.
Whether you're a novice or a veteran teacher, most teachers will prefer a collaborative method, okay?
Yes.
But we know in the real world, when you got parents and students and things, there are situations where an instructional supervisor has to use the directive approach.
True.
Would you agree to that?
True.
Yes.
True.
Okay. Can you think of some situations where you would respond effectively to an instructional supervisor using, and I'm not talking about a restricted choice approach, meaning I want you to do A, B, or C. I mean a directive approach. I want you to do A, and I'm going to come back and evaluate A and make sure you did A. And if you didn't do A, and I ain't talking about B or C, I'm talking about A, it's going to be a problem.
You can see that when you're doing data analysis, for
Okay.
example. Because you need that data done, you need it done so that you can look at the children's evaluation, so that you can see where you started and where you're going and where you're going to end up for the year. So I can see that. I need data analysis done on Tuesday. It has to be done. We have to be able to evaluate that data effectively. I can see that as being something that would have to be a directive approach, because teachers do tend to get lost in paperwork. And sometimes there's so much paperwork you forget about the things
The
that are
things that-
important
yeah, right.
that you have to have done.
Yeah. And I can think of another example. Of course, our present, I guess, supervisor, she has a love for the smart board, you know, and it is effective. Well, you know, I started teaching in 1974, so you know I can catch up with this stuff, you know. And so, I think we got an email one time that said, you know, it was while I'm doing work sites, you may or not be using the smart board, because I realize that you don't use it all the time. But when I do a formal evaluation, I want to see the smart board, and you know when the formal evaluation is going to be. I want to see that that smart board is being incorporated into your lessons. You can't argue with that. I mean, you know, that's one of the components. And so, yes, I can take a directive.
So would you say that the best instructional supervisors have to use a mix of both collaborative and directive approaches
To be effective.
Yes.
to be effective? Even though teachers prefer collaborative supervisors, when a teacher makes the transition from a teacher to an administrator, there is an inclination to be more directive. Why is that? That as teachers, we like collaboration, but as soon as we become an administrator, we start being directive. And then as we mature in our administrative and supervisory roles, we become more collaborative. Why do you think that is?
Partly because now you've got that leadership on you.
Well, first, do you all agree that that happens?
It does happen.
It does
Yes,
happen.
it does.
Okay.
It does happen because you're stepping over into a new realm. Now you feel like, well, I'm not really a peer anymore, so I've got to set myself up to make them respect me more. Not make them respect me more, but differently. And that I'm a leader now. I'm not just on the same playing field as them. I'm a leader, and they have to respect me as now I've got to tell them certain things to do. I've got to line them out on certain things, and sometimes.
And sometimes when you sometimes when you teach on the staff, you know of some things that are happening that should be happening, you know, as you're teaching, and then the first thing you may say, you know, when I become principal, I'm gonna straighten that out.
What advice would you give to classroom teachers who are currently in graduate school and taking courses in supervision to one day become an administrator? What advice would you give them to help them become better instructional supervisors?
Pay attention to everything going on around you. Just watch and observe everything that's going on around you. Watch other teachers. Watch how they do things. Watch students and watch your principal and how they interact with other people. Just be very observant and watch. Just watch. You don't have to say anything. Just do a lot of watching and just watch what's going on and how different people do different things and respond to different things different ways.
Sounds like you're saying focus on building interpersonal skills.
There you go.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, just be yourself. Me myself, just be yourself. You know, because what's in you is in you. If you're friendly, you're gonna be friendly whether you get the next job or not. You're gonna be there, and that's what.
And then you may not want to be a principal at the same school that you taught at.
That's true. That's practical advice. Huh?
But some people can handle it though. Don't get me wrong, because we've had a couple, I guess, who taught here. The first principal I worked under here was Mrs. Katie Pringle, and Miss Pringle had taught. She had been a classroom teacher, she had been the librarian, she had been the counselor, she had been the music teacher when they didn't have music, and she had also, I don't think they had the instructional coordinator at the time, but she had taught everything that happened at the school. So in some ways that was a good thing, in some ways it was a not so good thing.